Today we're trying out Pokemon Infinite Fusion, but with only the best gimmick ever created, Megas. But how exactly do you create Mega Evolutions in Pokemon Infinite Fusion? Well, you have to fuse two of the same Pokemon that already have a Mega Evolution in the mainline games, and most of the time that will result in their Mega, but sometimes they have updated sprites which look a little bit different from the regular ones. So the main rule for this playthrough will be that I can only use Pokemon that already have a Mega Evolution. I will also count Groudon and Kyogre's primal forms with this, because let's be honest, they're basically the same. Let me know in the comments down below what Mega Evolution your favorite is. Mine is either Mega Scizor or Mega Heracross. I honestly can't choose between the two. Let's also try to smash 8,229 likes, and with all of that out of the way, let's evolve our way through Pokemon Infinite Fusion. For the very first time ever, I'll be playing as a girl character, so here we have the beautiful Zwiggojr. I then made sure everything was randomized correctly, because if you're playing Infinite Fusion, you basically always have to randomize to make it even better. The only thing I didn't randomize was the gym leader's typing, so that they will still have ground or rock types, and not just some random Caterpie fusions. My rival for this video will be the Crimson Chin, who had a multiverse episode that's on the same tier as Spider-Man. We then go up to the professor's lab, where we get to choose between Meowlade, Nidosian, or Muddins. I could have gone for Gallade or Mudkip here because both of them have Mega Evolutions, and if you guessed that I went with Gallade, you were obviously wrong. I did get my ass whooped in my very first battle by this Gallade, so I ran out crying and straight into the Pokemart to get some free DNA splicers and Oak's parcel. I grabbed Professor Oak's balls and headed back into the grass to find a Tyrantdrill, and if you don't know, both Beedrill and Tyranitar have Mega Evolutions, so all I have to do is capture two of these and I will already have two team members. I then went back to the Pokemart because there was a mystery gift Pokemon for me there, and this guy gave me a Gasdom, another Pokemon that has two Mega Evolutions if I manage to fully evolve them, which are Gengar and Metagross. I would have to find another Gengar and a Metagross myself in the wild before I could use them though, so I don't know if that's going to happen. I then grabbed myself another Tyrantdrill and was able to Mega Evolve this thing into an actual Godzilla, and I don't know if I prefer this Mega Tyranitar or the actual normal one. Mega Beedrill still looks the same, but he'll definitely be able to deflate some balloons. I mean, 5 needles, I wouldn't want to get stung by that. On the next route, I found a Slowbro without a shelter on his tail. So if you ever wanted to find out what that looks like, here you go. I captured 2 of those and got myself a Mega Slowbro 2, who's probably going to be my main tank for the early game. I then went up to my first rival battle, and obviously the Crimson Chin needs to throw out a red Pokemon and starts out with a Yanmeeleon, which I just Fury attack with Beedrill. He is going to keep his starter throughout the entire run, and I honestly don't think a Gallade Persian fusion in the end won't be half bad. I still managed to take it out pretty easily with Beedrill once more, and as a reward he even gives me some more DNA splicers. I went through Viridian Forest but didn't really find anything useful that could turn into a Mega Evolution, so I just went to Mr. Rock Hard Brock. And as we go into the battle, we can only pick 2 Pokemon, and I started out with Slowbro against this Lickiardos. I hope this dinosaur did not exist in real life, but I sprayed his big tongue with a ton of water guns and forced out Wobbuckle. I was a little afraid of Mirror Coats coming my way, so I swapped out into Beedrill and Twin Needled it into the hospital, and easily gained my first gym badge without any casualties. I then went back to Viridian Forest because the game's encounters change when the time of day changes. So in the night, I managed to find a Pukazard, which almost made me puke, so I captured 2 of them, and I was hoping that I could Mega Evolve these into Mega Charizard X and Y, but this was not the case. Instead, I got this Mega Charizard from Hell that's a pure fire type. Still pretty cool. I then ran into a trainer with an actual Mega Blaziken, so now I'm just hoping I find one myself very quickly. In front of Mount Moon we saw a Screaming Rock, and I guess the Blaziken really was foreshadowing because in the grass I found a Raiken, giving me access to my very own Mega Blaziken. Sadly enough, it doesn't have access to Speed Boost. I totally forgot to give my Pokemon nicknames, so I named Blaziken Sanders, Tyranitar Godzilla, I turned into the Dragonborn and named Charizard Alduin, I named Slowbro Moby, and Beedrill Ron. Brock then lured me how to smash rocks, and I bonked my way into Team Rocket's scheme. As we all know by now, they're trying to create the perfect fused Pokemon and take over the world with that. This is their very first experiment where they try to make a triple fusion, but it doesn't really work out. They flee the scene and leave the equipment behind, which means that even youngster Joey could come by and try the fuse 3 Pokemon together. You will never know which fossil I picked. After this, I almost reached Cerulean City, but I got stopped by somebody's welcome mat. I need this thing in my life. People that come to me need to wipe their feet on a Stunfisk. This grass was not only home to doormats, but a full-on gold mine for Mega Evolutions. I captured 2 Volcajots because of Mega Pidgeot, which turns out to be a pure flying type, and he's trying that Yugimoto hairstyle. I also had to bleach my eyes after seeing a Vaporona, grabbed 2 Duskrons and Mega Evolved that into the wall. The next Pokemon I found was the main character of the Bee movie, Beedon, which honestly looks better than its primal form. I then checked out Mount Moon's encounters again and found a Dusgr, which means we can also get Primal Kyogre and a Scizor Flygon fusion, giving us access to Chainsaw Man himself. We have too many team members by now, and we can only use 2 against Misty, and her cute little Lapquill and Tongue Twister Tototata were no match for my Walls Rock Tombs. So with the burying of Misty out of the way, I went to Nugget Bridge to make sure my rivals Torsis and Georas suffered the same fate as Misty. I did get put to sleep by an Effect Spore, so the wall had to swap out when he brought out Meowlade, but Poseidon, the god of the sea, was able to Aqua Tail to one-shot it, and finally was Pikachu, and I didn't really want to get Thunderbolted, so I brought out Mordor. He was able to hit me with a bite, doing a decent chunk of my health, but not enough for him to go down by an Earth Power. I then showed all of the trainers on Nugget Bridge the way to Mordor, and went into the grass to grab a Lucav. Youngster Joey then threatened me with a Darkrai Giratina fusion, which looked scarier than it really was, and a little further on I saw a very concerning looking Anape. Lighthouse time with Bill, and he's doing the ride-on joke, but he took it a little bit too seriously. We reimagined the battle between Groudon and Kyogre from Emerald, and went next to the daycare to grab a couple more encounters like Polysour and Blast Chew. With that, we can complete our Kanto starter trio, and Venusaur looks by far the best of the 3. I really love the Oddish that's growing off the top of his plant. Blastoise does look really menacing, but is by far my least favorite of the 3 new Mega forms. Lucario itself does have its regular Mega Evolution sprite, and I bet a lot of you will be happy with that. I know we just did a rival battle, but we have to go to the SSN and beat him up once more, because the Crimson Chin is bragging that he's already caught 40 plus Pokemon. I decided to use Blaziken for this battle, and he also has a Blaziken fusion, which turned into a rock fighting type, so with a couple of rock smashes, his dreams were over. And Nidoline looks like some kind of sea monster, but is in fact a poison fire type that gets stomped by a rock tomb. Krokatu also gets buried, but Perlade has finally evolved, so I have to bring out my giant and make a volcano explode beneath him. This might have just sunk the SSN, but I do get out with the Cut HM and headed straight to Lieutenant Surge. Like everybody always does, we get stuck on a trash can puzzle, but we did find some pretty garbage things in these trash cans, like Dynamax and C moves. Let's just be honest, Mega Evolution will always be the peak gimmick. Lieutenant Surge wasn't too happy about this because he seems to be a terrestrializing fan and threw out his Pika-Whack. We have a ground type on the team that's literally the god of all ground types, so a single earth power one-shots it just like Area Chew with Lava Plume. He then went kind of mad and started chasing me with his chainsaw, but Groudon managed to save me in the end. Third gym badge acquired, still not a single Pokemon has fainted. Let's go through Diglett Cave because I wanted to pick up the HM for Flash, but it turns out it's not here at all. Instead, I had to do a quest for this old guy by cutting down all of the trees in his backyard. As a reward, he gave me some scissors, which allows me to use cut outside of battle without anybody in my party knowing the move. Without the Flash HM, I did have to head over to Rock Tunnel, where I found one more subject for my party, and that was Dark Rose. I found a pre-evolution of my Mega Charizard here, and even found the legendary Sweepy. In true Zelda style, I picked up a Pika-Reap from an old guy, and then exited Rock Tunnel and went straight into an even darker hole, Pokemon Tower. The Crimson Chin was mourning the loss of Timmy Turner, so I decided to cheer him up with a Pokemon battle. I finally decided to bring out Denji the Scizor, and he was just able to sweep through everything because of his Technician ability, which powers up moves below 60 base power. But to be completely honest, most of his Pokemon were very much unevolved. Then heard a scream of help and the Crimson Chin flew over. We were defeated by Team Rocket, so we had to retreat and instead had to fuse together 2 Aerodactyl to create a bird with stones sticking out of it. I know I can't really use these, but I did also decide to fuse 2 Mudkips together, and I didn't really like what I see, but 2 Tricos though made for something very beautiful. I also found Mudgar, which means that we can now fuse 2 Gengar together, which created the worst fusion I think I have ever seen in this game. It's just 2 Gengar that have phased into each other and I guess are stuck together, but I would have just preferred to see Mega Gengar. This just seems a little bit lazy. I found a Transformer named Bixis, which could also just be a Decepticon, and found Mamku had a total Aurora Borealis on his back. But by far, the coolest thing I found was Bit 2, which I used to create Mega Mewtwo Y. Sadly enough, you can't get Mega Mewtwo X. Just for the fun of it, I also decided to fuse 2 Bidoofs together to create everybody's god. Everything started smelling bad as we entered the sewers together with Erica, who normally smells like flowers. In here I found a Sylveon Gardevoir fusion, which means eventually we'll be able to get ourselves most controversial Mega of them all. As I was battling some Team Rocket members, I found out that one of them has a Ho-Choke, the most majestic man of all time. I then did the big spin and ended up in Giovanni's room. He was very surprised when I used his masterpiece against him. Mewtwo was able to kill his very first Pokemon, Vapor Zone, with confusion, and I honestly don't even want to know what Giovanni does with that Vapor Zone. Togedude got confused and punched itself in the face before I swapped out into Lucario, who threw bones at Polirian until he had too much calcium. We steal his Silph Scope, Mega Evolve our Gardevoir, almost get destroyed by a Celegricus, and finally challenged Erica to see who smells best. Finally used Velo the Aerodactyl. And Erica also has a Mega of her own, but that's Mega Turtwig. After I used Fly, she decided to swap out into a Breloom Dragonair fusion that got one-shot. I then also one-shot the Turtwig the turn after, and her final team member was Venudraw, which did survive a Fly but ended up going down to just a Fly after it, as it wasted its time setting up growths. Then evolved my Mega Mudkip and Trico into Mega Swampert, finally giving me my buff boy. And if you thought Mega Sceptile couldn't get any cooler, just look at this thing. I feel like this thing is going to do ritual dances and kill everything in its path. Mr. Long-Haired Dragon also joined the team, and in the Pokemon Tower, I defeated the resting ghost of the Silph and stole Mr. Fuji's Poke Flute. We made a Snorlax explode with it, which made Jasmine happy, and she even invited us to Fuchsia City to take on her dad. On my way over there, I ran into a dead fish that could have wrecked my entire team if I didn't have shared the Ampharos with me to Thunder Punch it. Because of its Wonder Guard, this was the only thing that it was weak to that I had on my team, and I'm pretty happy that Cher's hair saved me this time. A short while later, I found Double, so I grabbed 2 of those, and I don't know what it is with Beedrill and fusing with other Pokemon, but we also have Bios, giving us access to Beta Gible, and I was going to be super excited if Garchomp was also its beta form, but as it turns out, it turned into this monstrosity. What is this? They had so much potential and turned it into this. Just disappointing. And I also have Mega Latios on the team now. Or is this Mega Latias? You'll never know. I then bumped into invisible walls for 10 minutes, and entered Koga's battle with a headache. I took Moby out of the box for his next battle, and boy, I wish I didn't enter because Remo Cool is straight out of a horror movie. I still killed it with a couple of confusions and then went into DNA when Magnezing came out, confusing it some more, and the last two Pokemon Nidoshrew and Doodoo, you guessed it, also got confused. Easy peasy gym battle. Time to head over to the Safari Zone and capture some exotic Pokemon. I grabbed a Mimiwile here, found Ninetales, one of the most beautiful Pokemon you'll ever see, but also Torem, who's plotting a revenge on KFC. I also grabbed Dubra, and then the ability to Surf. Went to the Pokemon Center and I got myself a Mega Alakazam and Mawile. I ran into a Seleklang, which might be one of the most creative Pokemon I've ever seen, literally turning into a time-traveling clock, and also running into Ridley from Smash Bros, but just a little bit buffer. I decided to not save everybody in Silph Co because I don't know these people, so I left it up to the Crimson Chin instead, but just as we're about to confront Giovanni, the Crimson Chin is done saving everybody and needs some time to cool off with a battle. I started off with my newly acquired Alakazam and set up 3 Calm Minds because his first Pokemon was a weakling. I then proceeded to one-shot this and the next one Venoril, but I couldn't touch Haxol because it was part Dark type and my only attacking move is Psychic. So I was forced to swap out into Latios and kill it with 2 Dragon Breath, but this was not the best thing ever because I almost died to a Dragon Pulse myself. I was just lucky it went for Psycho Cut on the next turn. I killed this starter Perlade with some flies from Vilho, but Zexire caught me off guard because of how derpy it is. With Poseidon's Ice Beam, this battle of the Titans was over quickly. Me and the Crimson Jin then punch a hole in the wall and barge into Giovanni's office, which is not even his office, to be honest. But this double battle was over quickly. I just used Surf to take down Roki and Metatoo. I was a little bit scared of his Rhyhologian killing me with Thunderbolt, but that was no problem because Surf one-shotted it once more. The last thing was Senpom, and I don't know what this thing is doing here. He should be on round 1 or something. Giovanni should honestly just buff up his team. We saved Mr. Silph Co, didn't grab our Master Ball because really heroes don't deserve rewards, and grabbed Godzilla out of my box to try and laser down Sabrina's gym. And it was as easy as just paybacking Goldchum, Unduo, Pikafet, but when his legendary Gios came out, I gave Gengar some much needed attention by using Shadow Ball. I then surfed my way to Cinnabar Island, on the way running into a Togetomb, and I just had to show you guys this sprite because it looks like it came straight from heaven. After then arriving on Cinnabar Island, I headed straight to the mansion where I captured Jump Blade, giving me access to Mega Gallade, but also a Nincross, allowing me to use Mega Heracross too. Although I do have to say Nincross is a little bit cooler. At the end of the lab we find Blaine and he's talking about Mewtwo, but after showing him that we already have Mewtwo, he decides to give me access to his gym because he wants to fight the beast that he created. However, little did he know that I decided to bring my big aquarium fish instead. But I didn't just want to sweep through his team with one Pokemon. I did take down his Prime Dash and Bellmander with Surf and Origin Pulse, but I also wanted to use my Garchomp with Dig on his Duik and Blastoise with Water Pulses on Magrigus. Despite having used more than one Pokemon to sweep his team, it really wasn't hard at all. I just wanted to share the spotlight. 7th Gym Badge acquired. Team Rocket steals a boat. We go after them, but run into a Salamence and get sidetracked because we have to Mega Evolve it. And for once, this thing is not just flying at all times like in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. It's actually standing on the ground and looks way more menacing. But not as menacing as going into the deepest part of a volcano just to see Giovanni simp for 3 birds. But guess what? The only thing you need to kill 3 birds with 1 stone is a Rock Slide. Or maybe you need 3 Rock Slide because most of them are holding berries to reduce the damage of incoming flying rocks. The 3 birds then defuse and Giovanni's scheming seems to be over because he invites me to a challenge in Viridian City Gym. But his cockiness has not gone anywhere because once we arrive there, he says that he's still the greatest trainer ever, but he starts off with a Phalanx. 2 first stage Pokemon. In the final gym, that gets washed away by Socket's Surf. Ivywack is just a single blizzard away from the Ice Age. I then swapped in Special for Duckchew, and the reason why this thing is named Special is because it only learns physical grass type moves through a level up, even though it's a special attacker, so I don't really get it. But with a couple of Petal Blizzards, Duckchew was no more. Sipchomp might have looked super cool and menacing, but his blades were no match for my Maxie's Mega Horn. Last up was another Sceptile fusion, but this time combined with a Sandslash, but the only thing we needed to take this down was Toothful's Flies. The only really useful thing Giovanni has done throughout this entire story is give us the Earthquake TM, which I will happily take. But now, just before entering Victory Road, it's time to take on the Crimson Chin, in the place where it all started. And I knew that this was finally the time to use Gardevoir. The display of power made me fall on my ass as it draining kissed one of the ugliest fishes that has ever existed, psychicked a blue muck, and swapped out for Blaziken once a ladybug that had metal arms came out. With some flame charges from Sanders, this thing fell into the abyss. Elduin scourged Butterman the next turn, and Luxligator ate Riley's Earthquakes. And with one last Psyshock from DN8, the Crimson Chin fell into a deep depression. But I doubt this will be the last we see of him, because the next thing we had to do was go through Victory Road. I ran into a Hack Slash, one of the most detailed fusions we have ever come across. I'd definitely use this as a weapon if I was the Dragonborn. I did forget to pick up DHM for strength, so I did have to go by my girl's Jasmine's house to pick it up, and then I could finally reach Indigo Plateau, where I started crafting my ultimate team. Ended up with Maxie the Heracross, Toothful the Salamence, the two Titans Poseidon and Mordor, Latios the Mega Latios, and Chainsaw Man Denji. With this team, I had a ton of counters against anything they could throw at me. I especially had a ton of Pokemon that could deal with Lorelei, so let's see what piece of cake she really was. Maxie Brickbraid the Ugly Jinair, Mordor Lava Plumed Mamdactyl. I brought Maxie back in for Delital. Even though I didn't want to take down Santa's little helper, I had to do it with one more Brick Break. Another Delibird fusion, this time Deliawesome, also went down to a Brick Break, and Tyranster was 4 times weak to close combat, so it didn't survive a single one of those. Bruno, on the other hand, only became easier, as Latios just psychicked Beely, Crowcross, Polirogue, my dad Furchamp, and lastly Pikachu. There were a ton of funny names in his team, but besides that, really nothing all that notable, so let's head over to Agatha the Old Hag. I didn't really have anything for ghost types except for Toothful's crunches. And as I saw that she started off with a Giragrigas, looks like an alien that would abduct you, I just knew I had to eat it for breakfast. Ginkyun had the weirdest face ever, and was able to do about half of my health with Shadow Balls, but in the end felt the crunches too. Gasquill was no match for me either, and Genlade finally made me swap out into Denji, who managed to survive 2 hits of close combats, counter back with 2 bullet punches, and forced out Lit Tank. Because of the fire on its head, I thought it was fire type, but obviously it's a ghost normal type, but Poseidon still managed to one-shot with a single Origin Pulse. Lance the Dragon Master was up next, and what he threw out as his first Pokemon made me chuckle. Fortnite. Yeah, I know, I love this thing too. Toothful was able to kill it with just 2 Dragon Claws, but I did take a ton of damage. Another dinosaur that I've never heard of, Dragordos, then also fell to Dragon Claw. It only gets better from here because Pitina, I guess the lord of not the underworld but from Thunder, falls to a Dragon Claw as well. Eborus the Edgelord falls to Poseidon's Ice Beam, and Dragoterra literally has a castle on his back. I wish I didn't have to kill this, but an Ice Beam once more wins me the battle against Lance. Let's hope that the Crimson Chin throws out as many funny and cool Pokemon as Lance did. And he starts off with Ratro, which is not too bad, but also just why? I kept on spamming Lava Plume until we had a roasted Flying Rat, and then he threw out Garnine, the Land Shark with a mane. Kyogre is easily able to take it down with Origin Pulse, just like Beamoth, which was kinda stupid looking. Polydose is straight up a fusion that does not work, but as I swapped in Maxi, I got hit with an unexpected hurricane, and I thought I was going to go down here, but I still survived because I guess this thing's special attack still is garbage. Even Toothful couldn't stand up to this Leviathan as I got confused by Hurricane and almost killed myself. But Latios was able to counter back with Psychics, and even if I got confused, I just used Recover. So with that, we go into his Ace Perlade, which gets one-shot by a Psychic 2, and the last Pokemon, Magligator, fell to 2 serves. The Crimson Chin heads back into his comic book. Professor O comes up to us, congratulates me for beating the game with only Mega Evolutions, and registers me into the Hall of Fame. I'm not gonna lie, this was a very fun playthrough because Mega Evolutions are normally only used once per battle, and here you can always use them no matter what. That's what makes Infinite Fusion so much fun. You can play this game a million times and it'll be different every single time. Let me know which Infinite Fusion run you would like me to do next, or if there is any fan games or ROM hacks you would like me to check out. For now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank my membership and Patreon supporters for supporting the channel. If you want to do so yourself, you can do that by clicking the links in the description. And as always, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. I'm zwiggojr, and I'll see you guys next time.